and thank you all so much for joining me on the webcast today. We typically do not do a full feature-length webcast for a what's new and a point release. However, this release has an extremely large amount of updates, plus some really useful and exciting updates. For that reason, I thought it would be good to share this with you today. We should have Brett Barkman monitoring the question panel at some point in the presentation. So if you have a question as I'm going through the slides, feel free to go ahead and ask away, and Brett will try to get you an answer. I will also try to save some time at the end for live Q&A, but please feel free to ask the question while you are thinking about it. New features in Revit 2023.1 fall under these 6 key themes: design productivity, simulation and analysis, interoperability, cloud and data, design optimization, and documentation efficiency. So here's a list of features for design productivity. The ones in black are all of the ones from the initial 23 release, and blue are the ones we will discuss today as part of the 2023.1 release. I will keep this slide up a little longer so you can take a quick look at it. And here are even more features for design productivity. Again, I will pause so you can peruse the list, and these will be some of the ones we will be going through this morning. Here are additional features for simulation and analysis, as well as interoperability. Again, you can see the 23.1 features highlighted in blue. Again, pausing just so you can take a quick look. I know there's a lot on the screen here. And same here for cloud and data and design optimization. And again, I will pause for a second so you can take a look at this slide. You don't need to jot this down because we're going to go through each one of these today. Just a couple more here, but I think this is really starting to show the depth of upgrades in this release. Here we have many more features for documentation efficiency, and I am personally a big fan of these. So again, taking just a minute so you can kind of see if anything jumps off the page here. And the list just keeps going. So we do have a lot to cover today. All right, so this brings us to our first key theme we will see in depth today, and that is for design productivity. A new search functionality has been included with paste dialogues. This might seem like a small improvement, but on a typical project, you could have dozens of levels or hundreds of views to sort through. I believe this will be a big time saver in the long run. Worth noting, the search functionality is not case sensitive, and this will translate to readily accessible results. With this subtle update, I am sure you will notice an increase in your design productivity when pasting elements aligned to levels and views. So next slide here, if you are like me and you use the Select All Instances tool, you will notice now you can use it for a new list of categories, which are now enabled when selecting all instances in View or in the entire project. These categories are newly enabled for Select All Instances, and I'll list them off here for you. We've got scope boxes, parts, curtain systems, HVAC zones, and then openings, which include all of the following: shaft openings, rectangular arc wall openings, rectangular straight wall, roof opening cuts, floor opening cuts, ceiling opening cuts, structural opening cuts. Also, the Select All Instances command is now available for elements in legend views, which I find to be another great enhancement. When using shape editing tools, you can now add points along surfaces, offset from surfaces, or at absolute values from the elevation base of your choice, improving design efficiency for floors and roofs. I think this is a great addition because before, our values all had to be offset from the surface itself. It was great to have that functionality before, but now that we can use values from elsewhere in the model, it will be much easier to design the floors and roofs. I didn't mind having to do a little math before, but I'm really glad I no longer have to. So I'll take you a minute to look at this. So yeah, just to reiterate here, before these points were relative to the surface, and now you can use any elevations from within the project, which is pretty nice. With the 2023 release, a lot of structural content was added to several European markets. So going along with this, additional structural content was added for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. This content includes HP steel profiles, precast columns, trusses, beams, slabs, concrete piles, and anchors. So if you have any projects in this region, I'm sure you will be happy to know that you now have access to these families out of the box with Revit 23.1. Continuing on with some structural improvements in 2023.1, you can use the flip rebar set option in the rebar set right-click contextual menu to easily select the direction in which the number with spacing rebar set expands. That was a mouthful, but this feature should increase your detailing productivity when working with your rebar sets. Now, the next several slides will look at some MEP as well as fabrication parts updates in Revit 2023.1. You can now use the split with gap command with the following MEP elements: duct, pipe, conduit, cable tray, straight line segments of MEP fabrication ductwork, MEP fabrication pipework, and MEP fabrication containment. The ability to split with gap MEP elements will help you design more efficiently and accurately. Just to reiterate, you could always use the split tool, but now you can use the one that adds a gap between the segments. Previously, there was an issue when you had taps that were slightly offset in elevation of the center line. In some cases, if it was not far enough from the main body when making that connection, Revit wasn't doing the computation correctly, trying to make the connection. Realistically, things would fit, so you could always manually force it into play. Now, in Revit 2023.1, it behaves as you would expect, and now taps are more reliably connected when working with short distances. The feature helps you create fabrication models more efficiently and now better, as all the parts can be connected analytically as well as physically connected in your model. Now in Revit 2023.1, during part placement, Revit automatically orients parts to matching connectors when possible. This improves your productivity while placing MEP fabrication parts and will help alleviate some extra steps while working in your model. Historically, when placing fittings, you had to be very mindful of your cursor position and repeatedly hit the space bar in order to properly orient them. In Revit 2023.1, fittings automatically orient to face the cursor position, preventing repetitive keystrokes and reducing the potential for error. It improves your productivity while working with fittings and Revit MEP workflows. Previously, using the change service command to revise a sloped no-hub piping layout to a hub and spigot system would result in a disconnected layout. Now, in Revit 2023.1, parts are oriented correctly and the network is maintained when executing this command. This improvement helps you model sloped piping more efficiently. This is another improvement for sloped piping detailing. Before, depending on the slope of the system, you might not be able to continue developing a sloped network or branch from it. I can attest that this was very frustrating indeed. Now, routing from slightly sloped elements provides more predictable results. This improvement is for sure going to help you model sloped piping more efficiently and provide a less stressful time when working with your slightly sloped piping designs. Before this release, projected angles of layout would be slightly off. Now in Revit 2023.1, angles are more accurate. This fabrication sloped piping improvement results in more predictable dimensioning capabilities and a more accurate model. When you switch between models in the same Revit session, the focus order of palettes, such as the system browser and the project browser, is maintained. This subtle UI improvement will enhance Revit usability, particularly for the MEP professionals. Yeah, this is a big one here. So with ever increasing complexity and file size, it goes without saying that performance issues are one of the biggest challenges we face as designers. Most of the topics on this slide came about with the original 23 release, with the selection improvements coming along with 23.1. In case you missed it the first time, I'm going to run through it right now as well. So for view performance, Revit 23 added several enhancements to significantly improve overall view performance. As far as the UI optimization, UI components were optimized to reduce unnecessary background graphics regeneration during navigation. For example, the steering wheel rewind tool was generating screenshots at all times, not just while the tool was in use. And the UI of the navigation bar was redrawing the entire view many extra times. These optimizations have demonstrated an average improvement of 35% in navigation performance with Revit 2023. And it looks like they actually did about 100 test cases for this. Now, as far as improvements for families containing complex imports, which I don't recommend anyway, but sometimes you can't get around it, view performance has been improved in 3D views with selected families containing complex imports. Users reported that pinned and unpinned elements with 3D DWG imports behaved significantly differently. In testing with moderately complex geometry, Revit 23 provides 3 times more responsive view navigation with unpinned elements containing 3D DWG geometry. As far as raster image, users reported that raster images would perform poorly and display inaccurately after rotation, or the addition of transparency. For most actions in views containing imported or linked raster images with rotation and transparency, Revit 23 provides 3 times improvement in view performance, display, and stability. Now, for MEP elements, users reported that Revit views displaying large numbers of MEP elements needed optimization. Revit 23 provides an average performance improvement of 25% in opening and navigating views containing large numbers of MEP elements. And then another one here for view filters, users reported that performance suffers when dragging annotations or editing parameters in the properties palette when large numbers of view filters are in use. Now we're talking, I think, over 300 or more, which I guess on a large project, you could get to that point. So using a model containing 15,000 view filters, Revit 23, the filters dialog 11 times faster than previous releases. Additional testing for a model with 350 views, 23 provides performance improvements of 30 to 400 times over previous releases. So dragging the notes around was about 33 times faster, dimensions 45 times faster, changing a dimension 293 times faster, changing a text note 275 times faster. And there's a few more. The properties palette got 437 times faster. Hidden edges, users reported that Revit performance suffers when many hidden edges are displayed, and Revit 23 provides an average performance improvement of 35% in opening and navigating views containing large numbers of hidden edges. And then there's a whole category here for performance for shape edited slabs. Revit users have requested optimizations for viewing and adjusting shape edited slabs with many control points. In 23, optimizations have been made to simplify the display of control points. So it's a dot instead of a bitmap images. Results show improvements of up to 2 times in slab control points performance for that one. There's also been performance enhancements when linking DWGs. This one's pretty good. They said they were able to improve it up to 700 times faster with linked DWG files. Then the performance when copying large numbers of elements has also been improved up to at least 6 times in items, and the type selector has been improved. This way, so when the type selector contains many items, users reported negative impacts on performance. In 23, this has been pretty much eliminated. An example of a detail item selection that previously took 6 seconds is now immediate. Generic model assembly that previously took 48 seconds was also immediate. So hopefully you'll start to notice these on your large projects. And then for 23.1, there's been some performance improvements specifically for element selection, and these categories are optimized so that the performance of selection at medium or fine level has been improved. So cable trays for medium and fine detail levels, conduits for fine detail, structural fabric reinforcement only for fine detail level in 3D view, contours for medium and fine, duct installations for medium and fine detail, duct linings also medium and fine, flex duct for medium and fine and 3D views, pipes and fine detail level, pipe insulations and fine, structural rebar for fine detail level in 3D view. So yeah, there was a lot, but to summarize, these additional user requested performance improvements will significantly boost design production across your Revit projects. So again, these all came from, you know, user requested updates. So maybe we'll put a link out to this later, but a lot of these were posted on the Revit ideas page, and they came straight from that. All right, so continuing on here, let's move ahead and take a look at the improvements to the simulation and analysis key theme. When manually creating a structural analytical model in Revit, you will need to associate each analytical element with its physical context. Prior to this release, you could only create this association manually as well, and only after creating each analytical element. Revit 23.1 introduces assisted association to help speed up this process. Assisted association identifies the physical element that is overlapped by the newly created analytical element and automatically creates an association between them for you. Before creating an analytical element, select the assisted association option in the contextual modify analytical member tab on the coordination panel to enable this feature. If the association is successful, the physical model will be highlighted. This feature offers you greater productivity when you model for analysis within the context of a physical model. With Revit 2023.1, you can automatically create a connected physical model from a structural analytical model using on-demand configurable rules. Using the analytical model as context, you can easily generate physical elements and connect them, creating associations between them automatically. Once the physical model is built, it can also be updated based on analytical model changes. This feature helps better support analytical first workflows with automation. Revit 2023.1, there are new options available to edit curved analytical members. Structural engineers can adjust the curved member radius directly in Canvas or by editing the radius values. This improves accuracy and efficiency in developing analytical models by structural engineers. In Revit 2023.1, you can use the curved analytical panel to represent physical elements. You can create and edit arcs, ellipses, or combinations of the two to represent curved physical elements or groups of elements. You can reference the physical geometry when creating curved analytical panels using the start end radius arc, center ends arc, ellipse, or pick lines drawing tools. In addition, you can now define a path and create analytical panels by extrusion having a perpendicular orientation to the current work plane. You can use any work plane for this purpose, enabling you to model curved walls and roofs. With this enhancement, structural engineers will benefit from improved efficiency, accuracy, and flexibility in developing analytical models from their structures with Revit 23.1. Let's now take a look at the updates with respect to the interoperability key thing. I will pause for a second because this was probably the feature I was personally most excited about when it was announced. Revit subscribers can now create immersive visualizations through Twinmotion for Revit. You can update models in Twinmotion directly from Revit. You will then be able to explore your projects in VR to improve design quality and produce rich visual assets to win more work. All Revit users now have access to an efficient, high-quality visualization workflow through Twinmotion for Revit. It is worth noting here that you will need to visit your portal at manage.autodesk.com to access your download for Twinmotion. So in addition, after installing the Revit 2023.1 update, you must also go back and install Twinmotion for Revit. And it'll show up as a standalone product. Maybe I can show that a little later. It's not going to be shown as an add-in or extension. It'll be right next to all the other products on the product page. I will say it is a pretty quick and easy download and install and pretty fun to use. So I would encourage everyone to give it a try sooner rather than later. As far as interoperability, the next improvement deals with the fact that the US survey feet are used in mapping and civil projects that use state plane geographic coordinate systems. That being said, Revit 2023.1 lists US survey feet as an auto-detect import option when linking or importing a DWG file. This will allow better compatibility with mapping and civil DWG files. Elements with huge coordinates can be detrimental to the performance of a model. In Revit 2023.1, when auditing a model, the journal file will report all elements with huge coordinates. Huge coordinates elements are reported into groups: links elements, datum elements, view elements, and others. The journal file will also report the element ID, category, family, type, and the maximum coordinate value of the listed elements. The ability to isolate elements reporting issues with huge coordinates will be a big step in the process of auditing your models. All right, let's now take a look at the improvements to the cloud and data key theme. All right, the parameters service introduced with the original 23 release is a technology preview that allows you to manage your parameters library using the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Using the parameters service, you can search for parameters and pull them in bulk into your Revit model. All parameters are integrated directly into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Familiarly to the local workflow, parameters can be created by selecting the new parameter button when you're required to fill in the name, discipline, value type, and properties palette group. And you'll have to select at least one default category for the parameter and specify whether it should be a type or an instance parameter. You can also leverage your existing shared parameters file. From Revit, you can launch the parameters service by navigating to Manage Parameters Service in the ribbon. Here, you can perform all parameter management activities. You can search for parameters, filter a view, and or add parameters to your Revit model. Parameters can be added to the service by uploading an existing shared parameters file, similarly to the cloud. You may also upload parameters from an active Revit file or create the parameters manually. Before you import parameters into a Revit project, you will need to set their category in the service. Just click on the parameter to open its detail window, then change its category bindings and properties palette group. In Revit, you can add parameters from the parameters service in any location where shared parameters can be used. Simply select Add from Service to launch the parameters service, then select one or more parameters to use and click the Add to Revit Model button. From the service can be managed in the same way as any other shared parameter, and manage your parameters library more efficiently across projects and locations using the unified parameters service with Revit 2023.1 and the Autodesk Construction Cloud. All right. Another big one here for you. For manage cloud models in Revit home screen, you can now force workset relinquishing on cloud models from the Revit home screen. Revit will now remember the last account for Revit cloud models. If you were not aware, cloud models for Revit is a capability that allows users to store and access non-work shared Revit models on the Autodesk Construction Cloud or BIM 360. Revit 2023, when you decide to save your project to the cloud, the last used account is remembered and displayed in the Save as Cloud Model dialog box. This enhancement will improve your productivity by helping you quickly find recently accessed cloud accounts when saving Revit cloud models. If you have ever had to roll back a cloud model, you will notice that there is now a non-destructive model rollback for cloud models. In previous releases of Revit, rolling back a cloud model to a previous version was an irreversible process. All backup versions newer than the version selected for the rollback would be permanently discarded. In Revit 3, there's a non-destructive model rollback process. This means that all backup versions are preserved in the version history, and you or forward to any existing backup. This means you can roll back your Revit cloud models easily and reversibly with Revit 23. And brand new for 23.1, you can now publish models without links from Revit Home. This option enables you to have only the selected model published to the cloud, providing a faster publishing time without the need for a zip file containing all of the linked files. So to recap, these improvements make it easier to locate, manage, roll back, and publish Revit Cloud models. And just a couple more key themes to go. Here is a look at the improvements to design optimization. This is always one of my personal faves, the user experience enhancements to generative design and Dynamo Player will help you meet your computational design goals more efficiently. If a graph is not in a trusted folder location, the GD panel now display in-context descriptions to better understand the generation settings and optimization studies. Revit comes preloaded with Dynamo 2.16, offering new geometry and material texture nodes, including nodes to get and set appearance asset properties. New enhancements in Dynamo 2.16 include the new Graph Node Manager to help users understand the graph status, a new notification center, trust location warnings, Dynamo Dictionary, and many others. More new features are documented on the Dynamo website, and I could probably get you a link to that if you like to see the release notes. Users can manually change the SQL local database version. This is a feature targeted to developers to enable Revit to access the SQL Server database engine. These enhancements will provide you with an improved experience when developing your automation workflows. And last but certainly not least here, we have a whole slew of improvements for documentation efficiency. Let's take a look at these. There's some really good stuff in here. You can now easily document the top and bottom of floor elevations in architectural floor tags, choosing between finish, core, or survey elevations. If you want to take advantage of this, you can edit your existing floor tag and you will find these new parameters available in the label dialog box. So you have to go in, edit the tag family editor, click on the tag and edit the label, and you'll see these parameters available. So this enhancement will help you easily and accurately document floor elevations in your drawings. In Revit 2023.1, the behavior of tag leaders for rooms, areas, and spaces has been enhanced to get a better result when moving tags outside of the boundary. A leader is automatically created when a tag is moved outside of the boundary. This also eliminates the warning message that appeared in previous versions. If you disable the leader option, the tag will move back into the boundary of the room, area, or space. I will say that I'm so glad to finally have this. Part of me wishes I had it sooner, but definitely not complaining since I'm super glad to have it now. This would happen to me a lot of times. I would take an 1/8" floor plan and drop it down to a 1/16, and as soon as you start to drag those tags around, you get the error. But now you just drag it off to the side and you got a tag. So again, this will work for rooms and for spaces and areas as well. So pretty excited about this one. And here's another one for tags. Labels in tags can now report the structural usage parameter of elements. The structural usage parameter for structural elements, such as girder or purlin, can now be used as a label in a tag to report the parameter value when an element is tagged. Use this feature to increase your structural engineering documentation accuracy. And now let's take a look at some improvements to sheets. In Revit 2023.1, the swap views feature has been enhanced. If you move the view title position, it will be retained even if you swap the view with a different one. This can be controlled using a new preserve title position parameter available in the type properties. If the show title option is set to no, then this parameter gets grayed out. You can swap a view on a sheet to an already placed view, which provides more flexibility when replacing the views on the sheets. And just as a heads up and to reiterate, you will notice that this is a type parameter. So you might need to duplicate the viewport family if you want to use both options. The bottom line is this gives you more control when swapping views on sheets. Pretty cool option to have, if I do say so myself. To further prove we are really living in the future here, when moving multiple views between sheets, either by dragging and dropping in the project browser or via the contextual menu, the views will maintain their respective positions on the destination sheet. I'm not sure how many of you knew that you could even drag views around from sheet to sheet in the project browser, but the fact that you can maintain the view position is just a great added-on feature here. If you are looking for the command, you can either drag and drop or right-click on a view in the project browser. It took me a minute to find that. So to recap, now you can move multiple views between sheets while keeping their original positions. The open view command has been extended to support multiple selections of views, sheets, graphical column schedules, legends, and schedules. So this means you can control or shift select any views, sheets, graphical column schedules, legends, and schedules in the project browser you need opened, right-click, select open, and all the selected views will instantly open for you. You can now easily remove multiple views from sheets at once. The remove from sheet feature is available through the right-click menu and supports views, legends, schedules, and graphical column schedules. Detail number and sheet number is now included in the reference target view list, and it is searchable for an easier finding. This gives you better information to help you manage your views. And if you do a lot of revisions, this one is great too. Revisions can be added to multiple sheets at once, greatly reducing the number of clicks and potential for error. When selecting multiple sheets in your project, the Revisions on Sheet button remains available in the Properties panel. You can select multiple revisions at once in the Revisions on Sheet dialog and apply them to all selected sheets. This will greatly reduce the number of clicks by adding revisions to multiple sheets at once. And again, just to point out, you can access this parameter via the instance properties of each sheet. And again, this is for sheets that you want to include in your revision issue that don't already have an actual revision on them. If they have an actual revision on them, they will show in the revision schedule by default. It's now easier to verify that your system configuration meets Revit's hardware acceleration requirements. These are especially important for realistic mode, ambient occlusion, surface transparency, and anti-aliasing performance. Just go to File, Options, and select the Hardware tab. A green check mark indicates that the recommended values have been met. A yellow indicates that your configuration is suboptimal, while red may indicate inadequate or incompatible hardware. I had the unfortunate pleasure of seeing this in action last week when I had an issue with my graphics card, but with the new setup check, I was able to quickly understand the problem and troubleshoot the issue. So let's see how we're doing on time here. Kind of right on schedule here. And I know we went through an awful lot of material today. So thank you very much for your time and attention. And with that, I'd be happy to do a little Q&A. If you have a question and didn't have a chance yet, please type it in and either Brett or myself will reply via chat or voice. It looks like questions have been coming in as we go. Let me open that up here, and I believe Brett's been addressing them. I appreciate that. A round of applause for Brett taking his lunch hour to join us today. I really appreciate that. So also here, if we don't have an answer or miss it, it will get added to our report and I will follow up with a reply no matter what. So please ask away. I added some contact information. So if you have any questions later or just want to send me a link or show off something cool you've been working on, feel free to reach out to me on any of the platforms listed here. I'm not joking about that. I provided this information for you here so you can use it. I personally love seeing the things you are all working on, hearing about the challenges you're facing in your day-to-day design work, and just getting to know you all. So please feel free to reach out. We're here for you anytime and happy to discuss anything. So I'll just take a look. It looks like all the questions are answered so far. So I'll just give it a couple more minutes. While we kind of have this on the screen, if you want to, I might minimize this, and since we have a little time while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I might do a little look at Revit here. Let's let's have a little fun. You know, this could get dangerous here, running, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. So just to reiterate, if you're going to download Twinmotion, you'll want to look in your Autodesk account here. You'll need the install in first of Revit 23.1. And then you'll see all your products here. You'll type in Twinmotion. And then you'll click access. It should take you out to this website and you can download it. Once you have it installed, you'll relaunch Revit and it'll be available. Once you're in a 3D view, this is the file we used for class last week. It was just not much to it, but you know, I had it handy. So let's just see if we can open it in Twinmotion. If I didn't test this out while I had a web session going, so if we do have a crash or something, we'll just call it a day. So here, let's go ahead and let me show you how you can do this. Open in Twinmotion. and it will launch. And I probably should have shown this with a more developed model, but this was just a real quick, half a day's worth of work. So I'll create a new project. You're now kind of more in this little gaming environment here. And I did see a question for show the multiple revisions. Yeah, after I do that, I'll definitely walk through that. I can show that pretty quickly. So yeah, we're now inside a model here. I think I've got, let's see where we're at here. Let's do a little walk. So yeah, this model had a little development in it, nothing crazy. Takes some getting used to, but you can just kind of walk through here. See it in a little rendered environment here. Try not to make anybody too dizzy here. Just gonna walk our way down the hall here. Take another look. So all that context was added in Twinmotion, and I really have not had a chance to really get to know it yet, but just the fact that I can open it up and see it in this kind of environment, to me is pretty fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the revisions, the multiple revisions feature. So let's say I've got a set of drawings here. I don't have any revisions, so first thing I'll do is shift select a few of the sheets, and then go to the, hey, first time we're seeing Mario today, our favorite plumbing consultant to help us out. Click on revisions on sheet, and you can choose the revision. I only have one revision so far, so I'll click that. Now, if I go to these other views, even though I don't have any revisions here, you can see them listed in the revision schedule here. But let's go to another sheet here that might not have any revisions, and let's add one as you normally would. So let's say we had a update to this drawing here. I'm not even going to bother tagging it, but you can see it's now added to the revision schedule. But this is what I found interesting. If you look at the parameter value for revisions on sheet, can't deselect it because this it sees that it's already got a revision in here. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for that one. And if there's any other questions or you want to see anything else we talked about, let me know. And we're just waiting for any more questions coming in. We'll give it probably another minute or so. Let's see here. All right. So again, we'll put the last slide back up here. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. I think I'll hand the controls back over to Ashley here.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan, for the presentation, and thank you all for attending. This will conclude our broadcast. If you do think of additional questions, you can simply reply to that confirmation or reminder email you received from GoToWebinar. We can get those to Dan or your sales rep to get your questions answered. Once again, a short survey will pop up as we close down, and if you'd like to receive that AIA credit, you can leave your AIA number on question 4 of that survey, and we can submit that for you. Also look for an email tomorrow from us that will contain a link for the recording that you can watch again. Thank you all for attending and have a great day, everybody.